Have you ever wondered what causes someone to want to create? You see that film, that photograph, you listen to that song, you read that book, and you just think, wow. What drove them to become this? Well, I'll tell you. Or at least I'll tell you how I became the creator that I am today. This is Creating Creators. I'm your host, RV Allister, and stick around, because I have a story to tell. Welcome to an episode of Creating Creators. This is your host, RV Allister here, and today I am going to talk to you about the limitations to creations, or at least my limitations, and how I didn't quite surpass them, but kind of just ignored them. You see, if you hadn't known me in elementary school, middle school, or even high school, you would have thought that I had no business becoming a writer or the English teacher that I am today. I decided a while back that I was not going to allow my weakest attributes to dictate what it is I get to do with my life. You see, I want you to think back to elementary school. Around third grade was when this started. Sometimes right before your regularly scheduled math and reading lessons, another teacher would come in and they were called upon one, two, maybe three students, and they'll get taken away from the classroom and they'll come back after you are done with your regularly scheduled reading and math lessons. And in third grade, you may have wondered where those kids went. By fifth grade, everyone seemed to have figured it out. The mean kids called it the stupid kid class. And if you were in there, you probably called it the stupid kid class too. Because that's what the other kids called it. And clearly, they're smarter than you, right? I was one of the kids that had to go to the so-called stupid kid class because of my reading ability. According to state testing, I couldn't read. At least that's what the other kids said. I just couldn't read. And I felt like I couldn't read. Sure, I could recognize words on a page, but when you told me to stand in front of the class and read from the book, I stumbled and stammered over every third word, skidding through it like trying to ride rollerblades on a bumpy sidewalk. It was hard. Sometimes I didn't even cry in class. And then they'd ask me to leave the class and go to another classroom with another teacher who read a lot slower and asked a lot of questions, where there were a lot less students, and the students came from a lot of different classes. She never made us feel like we were stupid. No, it was just the other kids that made us do it. And that stupid, ridiculous test that we had to take, where you had to read this page in a minute. Your heart was racing as the timer is going on. You see the clock racing down, you hear it tick, 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 ticking as you are trying to sound out each and every syllable, and you just can't seem to get it to work because the words in your brain aren't matching the words that are coming out of your mouth, the words that were coming out of my mouth. The problem wasn't that I couldn't read. The problem was that I couldn't read out loud. The problem is I still can't read out loud. And it's a struggle, but here I am, a high school English teacher, because I didn't allow my one weakness to stop me from becoming who I wanted to be. Once middle school rolled around, I was still pulled from the classroom. I didn't go to another classroom, just went to a pair of desks that sat in the hallway outside of my English classroom, where I met with a volunteer parent tutor who liked to come to the school and help out those who needed a little extra help. I guess I needed a little extra help. We'd sit and we'd read through the assignments together as if I didn't understand them when I understood every single word that was on the page, but people just believed that I needed extra help because I couldn't verbally say what was on the page. Turns out I comprehended better than anyone in the room. I understood on a deeper level than most of my peers. I knew how to read between the lines. If you asked me what the author's purpose was, I knew the author's purpose as though I were the author myself. And then when it came time to write an essay, my writing, even in elementary school, has always been clear, precise, and pretty darn good if you were looking at the actual characteristics of the paper and not the spelling and my horrible handwriting. Along with this non ability to read also came my lack of spelling skills. I was the girl in elementary school passing notes to the boy she had a crush on in class, only to be handed back the note with corrected grammar. It sucked. Still to this day, I struggle with spelling. If autocorrect wasn't around, editors would hate me. Even with autocorrect around, I'm pretty sure editors are going to hate me once I start looking for an editor for my books. These were my challenges: reading and spelling. Uh, my younger cousin, she was 3 years younger than me. She is 3 years younger than me. She used to follow me around and just cackle as she spat out, "Spell shark, spell shark." You see, my problem with spelling simple words like shark is that verbally it was a challenge. But if you handed me a piece of paper and a pencil, sure, I could write the word shark out. No problem. I had to physically do it. I had to see the letters as I was making them. Couldn't just pop off words at the top of my head. I was the kid that was out first in every spelling bee ever. These things didn't work. I hated the game Sparkle, where you had to stand up and everyone had to spell a word together and everyone only said one letter. It was a guessing game for me. I had 26 letters to choose from and prayed that I'd pick the right one because if I didn't, they'd laugh because they know that she's the one who gets pulled out for the stupid kid class. even in high school. At this time, a lot of teachers didn't force you to read out loud. So I simply just never raised my hand to read, or at least I tried not to. My freshman year, we were reading Romeo and Juliet. And I was one of the few people who actually was able to understand Shakespeare, laughing at some of the inside jokes that other people didn't get until the teacher explained it to them. And then, just like any joke, even in Shakespeare, if you have to explain it, it's no longer funny. But anytime she asked for somebody to read or said that these people have to read this day, I always chose the small roles every single time. But then the day came where she told me that I had to read the Juliet part. And I tried. Before my lines came, I tried to study them, rehearse them in my brain as everybody else read their parts out loud, and then it was my turn, and I fumbled and fumbled and fumbled and fell like the tears that welled up in my eyes and rolled down my cheeks in the middle of my freshman English class, crying in high school because I can't read a book out loud. I tried to tell the teacher not to let me do it. I begged with her beforehand, but she told me to do it, and I tried and I cried, and she never asked me to again. But she never thought I was stupid. She knew that I wasn't. Anytime she had a question, I was the first to answer. Any paper we had, I had the highest score in the class. I knew what was going on. If she ever assigned home reading, I got it done and answered every single comprehension question she threw at us. I wasn't stupid. I knew how to read. I knew how to write. And only certain teachers could recognize that my lack of ability to stand in front of a group of people and read out loud didn't mean that I couldn't read. It just means that I have extreme anxiety and my brain sometimes doesn't get along with my mouth. But none of that stopped me. Like I said, throughout elementary school, my writing had always been clear and pretty darn good. It was in middle school that I discovered that I might have some skill in this department of writing. And sadly, I wasn't even there to witness my moment of glory because I was pulled out into the hallway with the two extra desks doing extra reading lessons as my classmates were inside the classroom doing personal work, and the teacher was just grading the stories that we wrote. And when I returned to the classroom, everyone's eyes shifted to me. And the students didn't laugh, but the teacher did. She was laughing really hard. And then she held up my paper and I swallowed hard. My heart stopped. My throat burned and I was ready for the worst. I knew I had a couple of spelling errors in there and my handwriting is terrible. But what could I have possibly done to make her laugh at me like this? And then she told me that my story was hilarious, that she was cracking up laughing at her desk while she was reading it, laughing out loud. I looked to my classmates and seen them nodding their heads in agreement. They were there. They witnessed it. The teacher laughing. What teacher ever laughs while grading papers? But she did, just like I wanted her to. That was the year that I discovered the power of words. I had started reading more in middle school, like I'm pretty sure most people did, at least most people who read. And I started to realize that through words, you can make people feel things. And I wanted to give it a go. So when my teacher told us that we could write short stories about anything, I wanted to make her feel. So I had parts that were funny, parts that were serious, just to give it a go, see what happens. And I made her feel something. My writing made someone feel. It made someone laugh. The stupid girl in the stupid kid classes who can't read out loud and cries in class sometimes. She managed to make the teacher laugh. Not at her, but because of things that she wrote. I have been told that I write well beforehand. I've been told this plenty of times in my life, probably teachers just being extra nice to me because they knew that I had trouble reading out loud and trouble spelling. But that was the first time I ever felt a power in my words. It was kind of an addictive feeling. So I kept going and I never stopped. And I still write and I will write and I'll keep writing. Regardless of my difficulties with spelling and reading out loud, some people believe that I may have some forms of dyslexia, like my grandmother, who was an English teacher for 70 years. I never got tested for it, but it doesn't really matter because I'm still going to do what I want to do. I'm the English teacher, the high school English teacher that cannot read a chapter of the novel out loud to her class. That's fine. I'm still a pretty good teacher. I'm the author that has to Google at least one word on a page to make sure I'm spelling it right. That's fine. I'm still a writer. Like I said, I decided a while ago not to allow my weakest attributes to dictate what it is I do with my life. And you shouldn't either. Everything comes with limits and challenges. But if it's something that you really care about and something you really want to do, why would you allow those small flaws, those small challenges to stop you when you could push through it, forget the odds, and just do it? I mean, honestly, who's stopping you besides you? Well, that's it for today. This is Creating Creators. I'm your host, RV Allister, signing off.